Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm gonna play a training game. I haven't in a long while. Okay, c4, c6. Let's see what my opponent does. Fillings. I usually avoid the English by going into either the Caro-Kann or the Semislav. I don't want to give away my repertoire, but I normally have been avoiding the English with c6. I no longer will, but I'm not gonna give away what I am gonna be playing. An update on my coffee machine. So I'm back in Croatia and I have my espresso machine, but something changed. The coffee isn't as good as it used to be. I don't know what's wrong. And it tastes slightly watered down, although maybe my palate has been ruined by bad French coffee. I don't know, but that doesn't make sense. So it has to be something to do with my coffee machine. I don't know what though. Unfortunately, the coffee isn't as good as it used to be. I don't know much about coffee machines, but if any of you guys knows anything, I have a DeLonghi machine. It wasn't too expensive, and maybe some stuff has to be cleaned or something. I don't know. You can adjust the water temperature and you can adjust how much water comes out. So those seem to be the two most important factors, but I haven't changed them. The settings are all the same. So my opponent is playing the most annoying setup. If they go b3 here, I can safely play bishop f5. But if they go knight c3, then bishop f5 doesn't work because of cd, cd, queen b3. Yeah. Now I have to play e6. And the problem is, if they don't go d4, we don't transpose to a normal Semislav. We stay within Reti or English territory, but my bishop is stuck on c8. So this, I think, is the biggest problem for people who play c6 against c4, because you don't get your normal Semislav and you don't get your normal setup with the bishop outside of the pawn chain. Instead, you get a bad hybrid. But what can you do? Still, if they ever play d4, we are going to transpose to the main lines of the Semislav and it's going to be fine. But as I said, most people avoid that precisely because of what I said. They will play d3 or b3. Now, b3 I think is the best move, just going in for a normal Reti. Then once again, if they ever play b3, bishop b2, and then d4, we are in a normal anti-Meran Semislav where they play queen c2, we go bishop d6, b6, bishop b7. Yeah, my opponent is playing the absolute best moves. Not according to the engine, I don't know what the engine plays here, but from a human perspective, this is the most punishing setup like white could go for. This is too watered down. I don't know about you, but I want my coffee to be almost spicy. So thick and heavy and rich that you only need one sip and then whoa. Anyway, sorry, if you don't drink coffee, I'm sorry about this. I do. I love coffee. So I don't know if you guys saw my tournament game from yesterday. I played a very bad game and salvaged the position, managed to draw, even though I was absolutely busted. And I don't remember ever saving a more lost position. So if you want to have a look at that, if you haven't yet, it could be instructive. I don't know what he's thinking about. He seems to be spending a lot of time on very strange decisions. Like bishop b2 here is what you should play. Bishop e2 is also normal, followed by castles. So I don't know what he's thinking about. Maybe he's considering d4, or she, I'm sorry. Maybe my opponent is considering playing d4, but d4 would just transpose. In fact, if d4 now, we are in an anti-Meran where white hasn't castled quickly, so black's e5 pawn break, which is the main pawn break, becomes way more effective. If they go bishop b2, bishop d6, bishop e2, I will consider playing e5, but then I have a problem. If bishop b2, bishop d6, bishop e2, e5, then cd5, cd5, knight b5, and I have to play bishop b8 because my bishop is hanging, then my opponent can play queen c2 followed by knight c7. In some positions, if my queen moves, winning the bishop, because my my rook would be hanging. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. So e5 has to be played with extreme caution. I don't know why my opponent is spending so much time. Almost 5 minutes down on the clock on move 5. And then plays bishop b2. I don't know. This should have been played automatically, I feel. Hopefully I have more time. I usually have way less time because playing and talking is very hard for me. Bishop e2, come on, come on. Bishop e2, bishop e2, bishop e2. Play it. Play it. I don't understand this. I mean, my opponent is playing the absolute best setup and then wasting time on trivial decisions. The bishop obviously doesn't belong on d3. It's very weirdly placed. I don't know. Maybe queen c2 is a move. So here are the sensible moves. Yeah, queen c2, okay. Now if d4 okay, my opponent may wish to go g4 if I castle. That's definitely an option. So if castles kingside g4 followed by queenside castles is interesting. So I'm going to delay that. And this also reinforces the idea of knight b5, which I have mentioned previously. So queen e7, bishop e2, e5, cd, cd, knight b5, bishop b8. There's knight c7. I'm still gonna go queen e7, but I'm gonna be careful about e5 and I'm gonna delay it because of knight b5, knight c7. Here you can now see this pattern. If bishop e2, e5, cd, cd, knight b5, bishop b8, knight c7, bishop c7, queen c7, castles. And I just gave up my good bishop. In the semi-Slav, when you have all your pawns on light squares, you don't want to trade your dark squared bishop. Obviously, I'd be really happy to trade the bishop on c8. Okay, I mean, I think it was important to delay castling. Queen e7 is a flexible move. It prepares or further supports e5, and it makes white commit. Like if white castles queenside here, then obviously, okay, bishop e2. Now I need another move. I need another move. So if I play a6, preventing knight b5. Well, first of all, let's look at e5 again. e5, cd, cd, knight b5, bishop b8, knight c7, check, bishop c7, queen c7. Can I go e4? Knight d4? No. If I play a6, is that a useless move? a6 preparing e5, or h6 simply wasting a move. If castles kingside, then g4. Castles kingside, g4. Knight g4, rook g1 seems suicidal. Well, maybe knight f6. No, I don't want to get into that. a6. I feel like I should play a6, preventing knight b5. I'm gonna play a6, because I want to go e5, and I don't want to allow knight b5. And also, a6 is a relatively useful move either way, because also bishop b5 check has been prevented if my king doesn't castle. It may seem strange, but it also kind of plays against queenside castling, because now b5 is further supported. And obviously I don't plan to play b6, bishop b7 anymore. I want to go e5, so my bishop is going to be active on the h3, c8 diagonal. And now I mean, my opponent can either play d4 or castle. I honestly don't see another move. One more thing I have to be worried about is if my opponent plays knight d4, Then e5 runs into knight f5. Okay, you see, I delayed castling. And that was sensible. Now I'm just gonna go e5, I'm not gonna castle. Now knight b5 has been prevented. If my king was on g8 now, I wouldn't be feeling very confident. But now there's no knight b5. G4 isn't too scary. And if g4 I can go knight f8. And yeah, then I drop the d pawn. Wait, g4? G4 I can go h6. Just preventing g5. So h6. Let's see. So my d pawn is hanging. h6, h4. I have to defend my d pawn somehow. I'm looking at d4. d4 seems very interesting. So takes, takes, knight takes. I don't want to play knight b6. I really don't want to take on c4. So I'm going to play h6 first to provoke h4, so that in most positions my rook opens up if he plays g5. Or she. Okay. Now, can I go d4? Because the alternative seems to be knight b6. Or dc. I can also go knight e4. So knight e4, knight e4, d4, queen e4, knight f6. The queen has to drop back, and then I play either bishop takes g4 or knight takes g4. So knight e4, knight e4, d4, queen e4, knight f6, queen c2 or d3, bishop takes g4. If knight e4, g5, then knight c3, bishop c3, hg, hg, g6. Seems okay. Knight e4, knight e4, d4, queen e4, knight f6, queen c2, bishop g4. I like that. I like that. I'm gonna do that. If knight e4, cd, then knight c3, bishop c3, cd, g5 takes, takes, g6 seems okay. This way I open up my bishop and I get to develop my other knight and they don't drop the d pawn. And if g5 is played, my rook activates. And I may also have queen h4 ideas later on, targeting f2. because he cannot keep the queen on a square that would defend g4. So knight f6. The queen has to stop attacking e5 and stop defending g4. It has to drop back. Okay. If knight takes e5, I take on e2. And I'm fine. Okay. So e4 doesn't work because of knight d4. That much is clear. Is that correct? e4, knight d4, bishop e2, knight e2. Yeah, definitely doesn't work. So I can castle queenside. That seems sensible. Yeah, castle's queenside seems okay to me. A very complex game. My opponent has 7 minutes, I have almost 11 minutes, so that makes me happy. But it doesn't mean much, it's still... I wish I had 2 hours on the clock in a position like this one. You see why it was useful to delay castling? That's what I tell people all the time about semi-Slav positions. Or d4 has not been played, but these setups for black. g4, whoa. Sorry, my mom is calling me. Wait. Ej, snimam partiju. Bye. Sorry about that. I don't know. Both kings seem very unsafe. Okay, d4 makes sense. I'm not sure I want to go e4 now, but where does the knight go? The knight goes to d2 and then I win the bishop, so the knight has to go to e1. I feel like d5 is coming and then I could be in trouble. So if ed, wait, ed, bishop check, bishop f4 check, king b1. Do I have bishop f5? No, queen f5 check. I don't have time for queen e2. So ed definitely. Okay, I'm not gonna think about that. ed definitely, and then probably rook h e8. If knight takes, then bishop takes runs into an eventual knight f5. Knight takes. Okay, interesting. So there's knight f5 in this position. And I cannot allow that. That's unfortunate. I have not expected knight takes. So I must get my pieces out of the way. I also must save my bishop. Bishop. So I think I have to go bishop takes e2 followed by g6 to save the f5 square, but then I'm kind of worried about queen c3 and my knight hanging, but I think I have to do that. Oh, he can also throw in knight f5 now. Oof. Oh, no, bishop d1, Jesus. Oh no, knight f5, bishop d1, knight e7 check. No. Ah, he can throw in knight f5. And then queen c7 loses to knight takes, rook takes, bishop e5. So I have to play queen e6, but then knight g7. But on knight g7 there is bishop d1, because if knight e6 then bishop c2. Oof. My god. Oh, also bishop d1 there's queen f5 check, but not really, because queen d7 or queen e6, depending on where the knight is. Okay, queen takes. Good. I'm gonna go g6. Covering f5. Now I'm setting up some tricks with rook or bishop takes d4. So my opponent has to be kind of careful. I can also go bishop b4 followed by knight e4, threatening knight c3, winning the bishop, undefending his dark squares. All I have to worry about is bishop takes f6. That mustn't hang. He's down to 5 minutes. I still have 9 minutes. Time trouble is gonna be a definite factor here. His h-pawn is isolated, so in many cases I have a better endgame. Okay. Threatening to move the knight away and win the f6 knight. So I feel like bishop d4 is necessary, bishop e5 is necessary, bishop e5, knight c6, bc6, queen c6 check, king b8, queen b6, king c8, queen a6. Yeah, I'm not holding that. So can I go bishop a3 and trade the bishops? Perhaps. Bishop a3, if knight c6 I just take on b2. And if bishop a3, queen a3 is check, so I'm in time to come back to d6 most likely. So bishop a3, queen f6 doesn't work, bishop a3 doesn't work, knight c6 doesn't work, knight f5 doesn't work. I'm playing bishop a3. I have to avoid this problem on f6, because that's the only tactical issue I have, and with bishop a3 I get rid of it, and I also weaken white's king. I'm just gonna pre-move queen takes in case he does that to save some time. Okay, I have to take. Can I go queen e5 threatening c5 once he takes back? Maybe. Is he looking at knight c6? Knight c6, bc6, queen c6, queen c7, queen a6, queen b8, king b2. No, that doesn't work. I can at least trade on d1 and I'm up a piece, am I not? For 2 pawns. So knight c6. Oh, knight c6 I also... Knight c6, bc6, queen c6, king b8. Yeah, okay. He doesn't have that. So can I go queen e5? Queen e5, he probably plays king b1, and then I can trade queens with queen e4, knight e4. I'm on the f2 pawn, and then knight c3 is a threat, so he probably has to play king c1. Queen e5, yeah, I like that. Queen e5, the threat is c5. And even if he plays queen f4, I take. Okay, I'm playing queen e5. Preventing knight c6. And pinning the knight. And if king b1, I also may have knight e4 immediately. But I feel like... yeah, c5 actually allows knight e2 covering c3. I think king b1 is a mistake. Okay. He wants to trade queens with queen g3. Damn. Can I get away with rook d7? Perhaps, but I don't want to get into those complications, so no. He's gonna go queen g3. I know he's gonna go queen g3. But I don't want to play rook d7. On queen g3 has to take with the pawn because c5 is hanging. If rook takes c5 wins the rook on d1. I don't know why he played queen h3 if queen g3 isn't a follow-up. I'm 5 minutes up on the clock. Come on! Now king b1, or any king move, loses to knight e4 if I'm not mistaken. Because I have both knight takes f2 and knight c3 check. Well, if he plays king b1. I feel like I should be better. I may be even winning, but I'm not good enough to know that. Interesting. Interesting. Seems like a weakening move, but how do I actually use it? He wants to play f5. And I don't see a good way to stop that. I cannot keep the pin. But what I can do is go queen a5 and play c5 on f5 on knight e2. I have rook d2 winning a piece. Okay, interesting, interesting. Queen a5, the threat c5, followed by, if knight e2, rook d2, winning the knight. So he'd have to go knight f3 on c5. But then I have knight e4 followed by queen c3. And it gets a bit tricky for him. Okay, f5, c5, knight f3 forced, knight e4, fg, queen c3, king b1. Ah, knight d2 is covered. No, knight d2, knight d2, rook d2, no. Ah! Knight e4, fg, queen c3 check, king b1. Maybe I don't even need c5. I don't need c5, I just play knight e4. Knight e4, fg, queen c3, king b1, knight d2, rook d2 is forced because it's mate. Queen d2, gf. I have to go for this. Knight e4, fg, knight e4, fg, queen c3, king b1, knight d2, rook d2, queen d2, gf, queen d3 check, king b2, queen e2 check, king a3, rook d2. No, my other rook is on h8. No, it's not. No, it's not. Rook d2. Okay, so knight e4, fg, queen c3, king b1, knight d2, rook d2, queen d2, gf, c5. Okay, I'm going for this. It seems interesting. Am I hanging my knight? No. I mean, I can also just consider throwing in fg at some point to make sure I don't have to deal with the passed pawn. Knight e2 now doesn't work because I play rook d2, winning the knight. So he cannot cover c3. Also, I'm threatening knight f2. I'm threatening knight f2. I didn't even see that. If fg, I just go knight f2. And I win the rook on d1 with check, or the exchange on d1 with check. Okay, he gets away from that. Let's move away. Covers d2. That's also prudent. Covers c3. That's also prudent, but now I can win this pawn. So gf saves the pawn. So I'm just going to do that. And saves the knight. And wait, what? Can I not just take that? Queen takes? Don't I have a check? What? I don't know. I'm just going to win that knight because I don't see why I wouldn't. I have queen e5 check or queen f6 check. This is completely over. Also, if rook d8, then rook d8 and I'm threatening rook d2, winning the queen. Yeah, this is just winning. I'm just a piece up. Yes! Yes! I love winning these training games. And now, rook d2 is coming. Boom! And almost mate. Yeah, now knight c3 check. And okay, let's not. Is this more precise? I think it is. Maybe knight a4 was better, but this is good enough. I just pick up the queen. Okay. Yes! Yes, I'm so happy. Okay, let's have a quick look at the game. Come on. Anolis is bored. Let's see. Let me just make sure you guys can see all of this. Okay, let me add a bit more space to this. Okay, like this. Like so. Okay. So let's go from the beginning. So this, as I said, is the most annoying way to play. And after bishop b2, bishop d6, it's just, it's hard to play for black. This is the worst. I mean, you can see that black scores pretty poorly. If I turn on the engine, it's about equal, but nah, I'm not a big fan of this. So queen e7. I just wonder about a6. a6 is okay. That's surprising. So the engine wants me to castle, and that's normal, but now g4. And you shouldn't care what the engine says. g4 is the Shirov Shabalov attack. Well, with the pawn on d4 it is. But it's still very, very scary. I mean, I don't want to play this position. So I played a6. e5 has to be correct. g4. Okay, h6 is correct. Knight b6. I saw knight b6. But okay, knight e4 is fine. Takes, takes, queen takes. Knight f6, my calculation was correct. Knight takes was better than bishop takes, but who cares? Castle's queenside is a problem, and castle's queenside is a blunder. So I just go g6. Why wouldn't I castle queenside? c5, losing the pawn is the move. Okay, because they get e5. Okay. Wow. Okay, and black is better. So now d4. Okay. I went from -1 to +1 in 2 moves. Bishop e2. He could have thrown in knight f5. Or she. So I was thinking queen c7 loses to knight takes, rook takes. So queen c7 or rook takes? Yeah, knight takes, rook takes, and then bishop here. Why? Why? What? Wait, what? Why not? Ah, because if queen takes, then the rook moves away. Okay, or I go rook e8. Okay, I miscalculated that. Queen e2, g6 forced. Bishop a3. I had knight e4 straight away, but it seemed... Wait, he had this? I calculated this. Knight c6. Okay, I would have thrown in bishop b2, king b2, bc6, queen c6, king b8. Yeah, this is just a draw. I'm stupid. My knight is still hanging. I have to repeat. Okay. Bishop takes, queen e5. Rook d6 was better, but queen e5 is okay. Okay, here. Queen a5 is good. I should have gone g5, but I went knight e4, which is good. Takes. Ah! Queen e5 again. Wait, queen e5, let's say king b1 now. What do I do? Queen e5, king b1. c5, let's say knight e2. Ah, I just stay here with the queen. Okay, you can see how wide open his king is. Because I traded the bishops. Yeah, no, this just blunders away the knight. There's no sense to this move at all. And then it's just mate. Wait, knight check was a quicker mate? Knight d2, what happens on king c1? Ah, king c1, queen a1 mate. I didn't see that. Okay. Yeah. Ah, rook a2 mate. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have found the quicker mate. Anyway, I'm very happy with how this game went. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.